Good day, everyone. I am Renz Angelo D. Calzada, a student of Master of Arts in Education Science of Ateneo de Davao University. And for this day, I will be discussing all about the basis of curriculum improvement, and I will be focusing on the topic psychological foundations of curriculum development. For this discussion, we will be answering three questions. But at this point, we will answer first the first question. What are the different definitions of curriculum? There are many definitions of curriculum. Because of this, the concept of curriculum is sometimes characterized as fragmentary, elusive, and confusing. However, the numerous definitions indicate dynamism that connotes the diverse interpretations of what curriculum is all about. The definitions are influenced by modes of thoughts, pedagogies, political, as well as cultural experiences. So let us study some of these definitions. The curriculum is viewed in terms of traditional points of view and the progressive points of view. So let us discuss first the traditional points of view. In the early years of the 20th century, the traditional concepts held of the curriculum is that it is a body of subjects or subject matter prepared by teachers for the students to learn. So it was synonymous to the course of study and the term syllabus. And a scholar named Robert M. Hutchins, wherein he views curriculum as permanent studies, where the rules of grammar, reading, rhetoric, and logic, and as well as mathematics for basic education are emphasized. Then basic education should emphasize with the three R's or the reading, writing, and arithmetic. And for the college, they should be grounded on liberal education. So if you're going to notice from the definition itself, from the traditional points of view, they are focusing more on the subjects or the subject matter. On the other hand, Arthur Bestor, who is an essentialist, and as him being an essentialist, he believes that the mission of the school should be intellectual training. Hence, curriculum should focus on the fundamental intellectual disciplines of grammar, literature, and writing. And it should also include mathematics, science, history, and foreign language. So basically, it focuses more on the discipline, and actually, this definition of Arthur Bestor about the curriculum leads us to the view of Joseph Schwab, wherein he said that discipline is the sole source of curriculum. And, and according to him, in our education system, curriculum is divided into chunks of knowledge, what we call the subject areas, especially in the basic education, such as English, mathematics, and science. And according to Philip H. Phoenix, curriculum should consist entirely of knowledge which comes from the various discipline. You know what? The academic discipline became the view of what curriculum is after the Cold War and the race to space. And after that one, here comes another curricularist, Joseph Schwab, who is a leading curriculum theorist during his time. He coined the term discipline as a ruling doctrine for curriculum development. And according to him, curriculum should consist only of knowledge. Knowledge which comes from disciplines, which is the sole source. So, if we're going to generalize and summarize the traditional points of view of the curriculum, well, curriculum can be viewed as a field of study. It is actually made up of its foundations, wherein we have the philosophical, historical, psychological, and social foundations, and including also the domains of knowledge as well as its research theories and principles. And the curriculum also, for the traditional points of view, most of them view curriculum as written documents or a plan of action in accomplishing the goal or goals. This time, let us proceed with the progressive points of view of curriculum. So, to a progressivist, a listing of school subjects, syllabi, course of study, and list of courses or specific discipline do not make a curriculum. So, if we're going to analyze it well, the views of the progressivist are way different and opposite to the views of the traditionalists in terms of the curriculum. These school subjects, syllabi, course of study, these can only be called curriculum if the written materials are actualized by the learner. So broadly speaking, curriculum is defined as the total learning experiences of the individual. In this definition, which is out of the progressive points of view of curriculum, this definition is anchored on John Dewey's definition of experience and education. John Dewey believed that reflective thinking is a means that unifies the curricular elements and thought it is not derived from action but tested by application. So for the progressivist, learning the subject, familiarizing the subject, memorizing the subject matter is not enough. It has to be tested whether the learner or the students or the child have applied whatever he or she has learned to his day-to-day living or in a real life scenario or situations. Another curricularist under the progressive points of view are Hollis Caswell and Ken Campbell. And according to them, they viewed curriculum as all experiences children have under the guidance of teachers. And this definition is shared by Smith, Stanley, and Shores when they define curriculum as a sequence of potential experiences set up in the school for the purpose of disciplining children and youth in group ways of thinking and acting. And under also the progressive point of view, we also have Marsh and Willis, wherein they view curriculum as experiences in the classroom which are planned and enacted by the teacher and also learned by the students. So if we're going to look very well with what is the progressive or the progressivists are trying to tell us, that the curriculum is not only about the subject matter, it is actually the total experience of the child or the learner, including also the environment that they will wherein these learners or children were going to learn. So to summarize everything, we cannot say that progressive points of view of the curriculum is better than the traditional or the other way around. In fact, curriculum must capture the concept of the total learning experience of the child or learners, just like what I've said a while ago, wherein both points of view are important because just like in the traditional point of view, subjects or the subject matters are really important. You know, the concepts in mathematics, social studies, and in science, they are very important. But knowing them or familiarizing them, memorizing them is not enough. We have also to learn how to apply these concepts in a real life scenario or in a day-to-day living or in a specific situation. So that is what curriculum is all about. It is actually the combination of the traditional points of view and the progressive points of view. So this time, let's discuss the different types of curriculum. So according to Alan Gathorn, 2000, there are 7 types of curriculum operating in schools, and these are the recommended curriculum. That is the first one that is proposed by scholars and professional organizations. Second, we have the written curriculum, wherein it appears in school, district, division, or country documents. And we also have the taught curriculum, wherein that is what the teachers implement or deliver in the classrooms and schools. We also have the supported curriculum that includes resources, textbooks, computers, audiovisual materials, which support and help in the implementation of the curriculum. Another one, we also have the assessed curriculum, that which is tested and evaluated. We also have the learned curriculum, that is what the students actually learn and what is measured. And lastly, we have the hidden curriculum that refers to the unintended curriculum. So we will be discussing them one by one. So first, let us begin with the recommended curriculum. So most of the school curricula are recommended. The curriculum may come from a national agency like the Department of Education and the Commission on Higher Education, and as well as to the Department of Science and Technology or any professional organization who has stake in education. So example for this is the Philippine Association for Teacher Education, or PAFTE, or we also have the Biology Teacher Association, or BIOTA, which may recommend a curriculum to be implemented in the elementary or the secondary level. Second type of curriculum is what we call the written curriculum. This includes documents, course of study, or syllabi handed down to schools, districts, division, departments, or colleges for implementation. And the written curriculum are made by curriculum experts with participations of teachers. And these written curriculums are under have underwent or will undergo pilot testing or tried out in sample schools or population. So example for this is the K to 12 basic education curriculum, and another example is the written lesson plan of each classroom teacher made up of objectives and planned activities of teachers. And another example for this are the curriculum guides that are given to or have prepared by the Department of Education. The third type of curriculum is what we call the taught curriculum. The taught curriculum is different planned activities which are put into action in the classroom. And these are varied activities that are implemented in order to arrive at the objectives or purpose of the written curriculum. These taught curriculum are used by learners with the guidance of teacher. And these correct type of curriculum varies according to the learning styles of students and the teaching styles of teachers. So basically, this taught curriculum is actually dependent on whatever the technique and styles of the teacher on how she will teach the subject matter to the students. And of course, the teacher will also adjust to the learning styles of the students. Next is the supported curriculum. This refers to the support curriculum that includes material resources such as textbooks, computers, audiovisual materials, laboratory equipment, playgrounds, zoos, and other facilities. The support curriculum should enable each learner to achieve real and lifelong learning. Example for this in the new normal are the modules that are prepared by the Department of Education as well as with the private schools or private colleges and universities in the Philippines. The fifth type of curriculum is what we call the assessed curriculum. This refers to a tested or evaluated curriculum. At the duration and end of the teaching episodes, series of evaluations are being done by the teachers to determine the extent of teaching or to tell if the students are progressing. So this is really referred to as the assessment. So why do they need to be assessed? Of course, to test whether the students are progressing, and of course to test whether the the way of teaching and all the materials that have prepared by the school and of course by the department is if to learn if they are effective with the students or to the students and which can cater their learning styles. An example for this are the assessment tools like pencil and paper test, authentic instruments like portfolio are actually being utilized. The next type is the learned curriculum. This refers to the learning outcomes achieved by the students. Learning outcomes are indicated by the results of the test and changes in behavior, which can either be cognitive, affective, or psychomotor. The last type of curriculum is the hidden curriculum. This is the unintended curriculum which is not deliberately planned but may modify behavior or influence learning outcomes. Best example for this are the peer influence, school environment, physical condition. It also includes the teacher-learning interaction and the mood of the teachers and many other factors which actually make up the hidden curriculum. So at this point, we will proceed now to the psychological foundations of curriculum. So when we talk about psychology, it provides the basis for the teaching and learning process. It unifies elements of the learning process and some of the questions which can be addressed by psychological foundations of education. So what are these questions? So first, we have the how should curriculum be organized to enhance learning? Second, what is the optimum level of students' participation in learning the various contents of the curriculum? For the psychological foundations of curriculum, we will be considering three groups of learning theories, and that includes behaviorism, which is the oldest group, which deals with various aspects of stimulus response and reinforcers. And the second one, we have the cognitive psychology, which view the learner in relation to the total environment and consider the way the learner applies information. And lastly is the humanistic psychology, which consider the whole child, including their social, psychological, and cognitive development. So when behaviorist theories are discussed separately, learning tends to focus on conditioning, modifying, and shaping behavior through reinforcements and rewards. And when cognitive information processing theories are stressed, the learning process focuses on the student's developmental stages and multiple forms of intelligence, as well as problem solving, critical thinking, and as well as creativity. So when we talk about the humanistic psychological aspects of learning, that deals with the learner's needs, attitudes, and feelings and entails more alternatives in learning. So let us begin with the first type of learning theories or the first group of learning theories, which is all about behaviorism. So behaviorism dominated the 20th century psychology. It includes the connectionisms of Edward Thorndike, which influenced both Ralph Tyler and Hilda Taba, who are considered to be one of the well-known curricularists. We have also Ivan Pavlov, or the Ivan Pavlov's classical conditioning, and as well as B.F. Skinner's operant conditioning, and they are all behaviorist in character. So another behaviorist theory is the modeling and observation theory of Albert Bandura. And among also the behaviorists is Robert Gagne's hierarchical learning, wherein the listed learning outcomes overlap with the domains in the taxonomy of educational objectives, which are cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. So these hierarchical learning or sets of behavior and the five learning outcomes actually became the classic example. So first we have the intellectual skills or the know-how to categorize and use symbols, forming concepts and problem solving. We also have the information or know what, knowledge about facts, dates, and names. We also have the cognitive strategies or learning skills. Then we also have the motor skills and as well as the attitudes, feelings, and emotions learned through experiences. So although we are talking about behaviorism here, Behaviorism also adapt ideas coming from the cognitive psychologist or psychology, because you know the behavior of a human being is actually based on how an individual, a child, or a learner will be doing such behavior based on what he or she have learned. Then, so for the behaviorist, learning should be organized in order that students can experience success in the process of mastering the subject matter. And learning also that refers to the method which is introduced in a step-by-step manner with proper sequencing of tasks, which is viewed by other educational psychologists as simplistic and mechanical. So if we're going to relate this one with our curriculum, we can see this one in the way how the teacher presented the lessons. It is really presented in order, just like by making the lesson plan. You can see that there is an order there as how he or she will present the lesson. And another example for this are when it comes to the activities for the students. When you give the procedure for that specific activity or instructions, the instructions must be in order so that the students will be able to know how to do such activity, because if it is not in order, then most probably the students wouldn't know what would be the expected output that they are going to perform or to make. We all know that behaviorism has a major impact in education, and curriculum specialists can adopt behaviorist principles and procedures to increase the likelihood that each student will find learning relevant and enjoyable. So, therefore, the teacher must make sure that there will be connections in the lessons and to the students so that the students can create positive experiences. And best example for this is when new topics and or activities are introduced, connections should be built on students' positive experience. And according also to the behaviorists, they believe that the curriculum should be organized so that students can master the subject matter. But they are highly prescriptive and diagnostic, wherein they rely on step-by-step structured learning methods. And best example for this are the students who are actually struggling for a specific lesson or struggling to the students. So most probably we give them interventions or reinforcements, or we give them additional activities, and with that activities we really have to make sure that that specific learning activity must be on a step by step basis. Since they are struggling, then we have to make sure that the concepts that are being presented on that specific lesson will be understood by the learner. So, in general, combining behaviorism with learning includes careful analysis and sequencing of learners' needs and behaviors. And of course, the principles of testing, monitoring, drilling, and feedback are the characteristics of the combination of behaviorism and learning. And these are actually very visible in the curriculum. So the learning conditions needed for successful outcomes are carefully planned through small instructional steps and sequences of responses that increasingly approximate the desired behavior of learning. And these basic principles tend to coincide with today's basic skills training programs in reading and language development, such as DSTAR, the SQ3R, and continuous progress. As you can observe on this, reading and language development programs, they are following a step-by-step process, and it is really important so that the student or the learner will able to know how to read and to comprehend to whatever he or she is reading. And this also includes the methods of individualized instruction, direct instruction, mastery learning, instructional training or design, and of course the competency-based education, which we are implementing right now in the Department of Education in the basic education. So the emphasis on these programs and methods involves first, we have the skill acquisition. We also have matching instructional materials to learners' abilities. Then, of course, we're also conducting remediation, then step-by-step activities, repetition, drill, and of course, reinforcement. So these are the things that we give emphasis when it comes to the combination of behaviorism and learning, and if we're going to relate and apply these concepts in our curriculum, and of course including also review, that is very important. So this time we will proceed with the cognitive psychology. So, how do learners store information? How do they retrieve data and generate conclusions? Well, actually, these are some of the basic questions asked by cognitive psychologists. So, when we talk about cognitive psychology, that it only focus or they focus their attention on how individuals process information and how they monitor and manage thinking. So among the advocates of cognitive psychology are we have John Piaget, which is an advocate of cognitive psychology for his cognitive development stages. We also have Lev Vygotsky for his social constructivism. And aside from that, we also have Howard Gardner for his multiple intelligences. We also have Richard Felder and Linda Silverman for their learning styles, and Daniel Goleman for his emotional intelligence. So these um, psychologists and their theories are actually under the cognitive psychology. And for the cognitive theories, so we have them, yes, and according to them, that learning constitutes a logical method for organizing and interpreting learning. And learning is actually rooted in the tradition of subject matter and is similar to the cognitive development theory. So why do you think the curriculum specialists and teachers are cognitive oriented? Well, because the cognitive approach constitutes a logical method for organizing and interpreting learning. And the approach, of course, of the teachers is rooted in the tradition of subject matter. And educators have been trained in cognitive approaches and understand them. So teachers use a lot of problem and thinking skills in teaching and learning, and these are exemplified by practices like reflective learning, intuitive learning, creative thinking, and discovery learning, and many others. The teacher who has a structured style of teaching would prefer the problem solving method, which is based on reflective thinking or the scientific method, because the teachers would like also to test our cognitive skills, whether we have understood well the topic, or to know whether the students have generated other questions or link the certain topic to another idea, and that would tell the teacher whether the students are critically thinking. Then most curricularists are cognitive oriented in their approach to learning, but we believe that this learning model is incomplete and that something gets lost in its translation to the classroom. Because, for example, we believe that many schools are not pleasant places for all learners and that the quality of life in classroom can be improved. So much of the current teaching learning process still has teachers predominantly talking and students mostly responding to the teachers. Then the workbook and textbook continue as the main sources of instruction, which is not really good. So it is really important that the teachers the teachers should be facilitators of learning, wherein they do not give all the inputs. They have to let the students discover the concepts, especially when we discuss science concepts. So it is really important that the students will learn out of their experience. So maybe in a way of experimentation, or they can also gain knowledge out of their peers when they have brainstorming. So, out of that concept, curriculum specialists must understand that school should be a place where students are not afraid to ask questions. You know what? We need to let students ask questions because they learn out of that. And the students are very curious, especially those who are in the elementary, well, also to those students who are in the high school level. And they are really seeking for knowledge and they have a lot of questions. And of course, as a teacher, we have to respond to them so that they can connect their ideas with their prior ideas and they can also generate new ideas out of those. And we need also to let the students commit mistakes and be wrong so that, you know, they can also be rewarded by the teacher out of that. And I believe that once a student, a learner, or an individual commit mistakes, they actually learn from it. And we need also to let our students take cognitive risk and, of course, play with their ideas. So, this time, let us proceed with the humanistic psychology. So, humanistic psychology, they are concerned with how learners can develop their human potentials. Traditional psychologists actually do not recognize humanistic psychology as a school of psychology. However, observers view humanistic psychology as the third force learning theory after behaviorism and cognitive development. The humanistic psychology, it is actually built on the Gestalt psychology, where learning can be explained in terms of the wholeness of the problem and where the environment is changing and the learner is continuously reorganizing his or her perceptions. And among of the and aside from the Gestalt theory, we also have some psychologists like Abraham Maslow with his theory of human needs for self-actualizing persons. We also have Carl Rogers with his non-directive lives. Well, they are actually part of the humanistic psychology. So let's talk about humanistic psychology and how it has impacted or formed or shaped the curriculum. Well, according to the humanistic psychology, curriculum is concerned with the process and not the product. It's all about how students learn and it's how students have applied whatever he had learned in a specific situation, and it's not focused on the products, it's not focused on the subject matter or to whatever they have memorized or familiarized. It's all about application. Then according to the humanistic psychologists, it's all about personal needs, not the subject matter. So of course, being educators or curricularists, we have to make sure that we address the needs of the students in a classroom so that they can learn effectively. And it's not only about the subject matter that we need to focus. Of course, we also have to think also or consider whatever the students are feeling. And next is all about the psychological meaning, whether the concepts that they have learned have really impacted them well or it creates an impact in their lives. And of course, they have applied this one in a different situations or scenarios in their day-to-day living. And of course, environmental situations. Just like what I've said, whatever they have learned in the classroom or from their teacher or from their peers, that is the time that they learned how to apply it. And of course, one thing that is very important when it comes to humanistic psychology and its application to the curriculum is all about reflection. The students must learn how to reflect what they have learned, and by the time that they will reflect or use their reflective thinking, then that will be the time that we can assess that the students have really learned out of the topic because they have learned how to apply whatever they have learned from the teachers or from the school in the specific scenarios or situations or in their day-to-day living. So in summary, psychology has a great influence in curriculum. Learners are not machines and the mind is not a computer. Humans are biological beings affected by their biology and their cultures. The psychological foundations will help curriculum makers in nurturing a more advanced, more comprehensive, and complete human learning. And here are my references. That would be all. Thank you.